This has been the greatest philosophical question of the year. My husband wrote on my whiteboard, which came first, orange, the color, or the fruit?
Good riddance 2022. How do you let it go? How do you let go one of the harshest years of your life? What divine magic would you use? Is there even such a thing? I try to think so hard about how my life has changed over the course of just a year. Just 364 days. And I say 364, I don't count the last day. Gosh, just like the turning of the seasons just brought new things to deal with, new things to worry about. I mean, such is life, right? It makes the good times so much better to look back in hindsight and think about all the trauma you've endured over the course of a year. And when you look through your photos and realize that there was a lot of good things that happened. There was a lot of flowers in the garden. There was a lot of new skills learned. You found new ways to hang out with family. You found that grief hits everyone different. You found that having a baby won't change the dynamic of your family life that you've built too bad. You have found that what you truly got out of 2022 were lessons. Lessons. Harsh lessons. Lessons you have to learn the hard way. Right? But then, not to be love and light. Not to just concentrate on the good. Because I think that there is a part of the bad that needs, the good that needs the bad. And it needs that interplay. So while I'm thinking about the harsh things, my parosmia, my smell and taste condition that started earlier this year, finding out I was pregnant, my dad passing away suddenly, like got sick and then died suddenly, grief, dealing with the aftermath of grief, because that's a thing, dealing with family after grief has, how the dust settles. And then still want to put creative endeavors out. I was so thankful that I got my Thoth deck out, that I was able to share that. And that was a feat. It's not for everyone, but it was definitely a labor of love for me. It will forever, it has forever changed me to have that in the world. My very own Thoth deck. That I cultivated and nurtured to become something I didn't think was possible. A Thoth clone in planet Earth style, I guess you could say. And then after that, I still wanted to make things. Through my grief, through my elation of being pregnant, I still wanted to put things out. I still wanted to try new things. Try new hobbies. Push through a financial crisis. Come out the other end of it, you know? Forge new boundaries. Tear away some of the guardrails that I had up so that more love could come in. you know, through the summer and through the fall, I was very much, I had stopped searching. And I felt disconnected from the world. And my Thoth deck brought me back. I was tethered once again, grounded once again. And then the holidays hit. And that was tough. Tough to put my tree up. Tough to look at my favorite ornaments, you know. But then also wrapping presents, which is one of my favorite things to do during the holidays as I prepare. I love to wrap. I was coming to the end of pregnancy as well. But all of that led to wanting to have a good Christmas, wanting to have a good, you know, holiday season. But then also terrified of what my third birth story was going to be. Terrified to start again. Terrified of what the family, my immediate family, my kids and my husband, how we would all change because of it. And then we kind of got into a groove. We talked about it and we got settled and we got, through the help of you guys, I love you guys so much, through so many supporters that helped us get set up. We felt ready. And then in the dawn, on Christmas Day, I went into labor. In the wee hours of the morning. And my husband drove my kids and me to the hospital while I was actively in labor, through shards of golden sunlight. And my son was born that morning, just an hour later. So, that was a good ending to an otherwise harsh year. So, let's look at some things that got me through this year. Okay, so now we're going to have some things to look at while I talk about the year that I've had, I guess you could say. Some staple things. So I think what I want to do is do like categories. So we're going to do books and art and decks, things like that. So books, nudity warning for the cover of this first book, just to get it out of the way. Now, I don't necessarily think I bought this book this year, but it's been a staple for many reasons, especially in the beginning of the year. This book is called MARAH. It's technically an anthology. Let me get off the page here, but it's basically about Babylon, the art of the divine feminine. And it's from all kinds of creators that wrote in. It's a community type of a project. And there's art, like sacred art from the people that wrote in. There's poetry. I mean, it's just a basic anthology of Babylon. And it's just so profound. Like, I don't even know how to describe how profound this book was for me, because I don't know. It just, I mean, look, here's some tarot cards. But it's all about Babylon and my relationship with the Babylon, the Whore of Babylon, and like specifically the Lust card in the Thoth Tarot links me greatly to Babylon itself, but to other deities as well, and to my own relationship with my femininity, I guess you could say. This book has really taught me a lot about my own femininity and the shadows and that, you know, can play out there. So, just an anthology. I don't think you can get this anymore. Although I pride myself on having a good relationship with my body and my own brand of energy, my own brand of source energy, this, it was just one of those things that I had to have in my collection. So, along the same lines of having kind of a spiritual practice, I guess you could say. Well, all of these derive from like my spirituality and my witchcraft and things like that. But having a spiritual practice is something very sacred to me. And reading books, but then also practicing on top of that is sacred to me as well. And this book, with books in general, I will say this. I don't own a lot of witchcraft books that are specifically for witchcraft. When I want to dive into my own brand of my craft, I tend to go towards more books that go more into a philosophical place, more of a spiritual place, so that I can formulate my own ideas. And there have been actually a lot of science books this year that I didn't get out because really just these were like the staples that like got me through the year, got me thinking, got me journaling. And that's where the messages and visions and things will come from, is reading things like this that are more broad. And then I choose when to pinpoint. No one's telling me what to do. No one's telling me this is when you need to do this. This is when you need to do that. Oh, this moon is in Sagittarius and this means this. Like, I don't want anyone to have to tell me what to do with my craft. That ends up making me angry. Not angry, I guess, just grumpy. It makes me grumpy because I'm like, I'm going to do what I want. Now, and the same goes with Danielle Dulsky, who wrote a whole bunch of books on witchcraft and spirituality and things like that. But this specifically is what it is advertised as. It is a heathen Bible for the untamed woman. And it's broken up into sections, like, I think that it's elemental. Yeah, earth rituals. So it's elemental. And the rituals that Danielle puts in here are so good. I haven't done them all. I probably won't. But the way in which she uses words speaks to a part of myself, right? And I like that. I like when the language used in a book, in a specific text, draws me in to the point that I want, and not sends me over to the edge where I'm like spiraling on this like acid trip of knowledge, okay? Because I still kind of want to be grounded when I'm reading, because my daydreams and my imagination work often come after episodes of reading. Like, I want to be present while reading, and then I want to think about what I read in a very daydreamy way. And when the language is right in a book, it can keep me engaged in a way that I'm going to stay engaged. I'm going to read the stories, kind of like Women Who Run with the Wolves. You know, you don't read that cover to cover. You pick it up and you bibliomancy it until you find something and the language is right. It pulls you in. You read the story. And then when you come out of the session with a certain book, or, you know, with the books that I will consider sacred texts, I very much do tend to have those dreamy, trippy, philosophical thoughts, daydreamy, beautiful thoughts after reading. And that's always a good thing for me too. Like, I'm staying on this one page because there's no pictures or anything. It's just a book. But how beautiful is just this section? Our wild art and unbridled sensuality, embodying the crone mermaid. I just made a video on the crone. I just made a video about crone energy and how I feel about crone energy. But like just the the specificity of crone mermaid makes me really happy, and it makes me really think about like what a matriarch of a mermaid society would look like. You know, like she can't really wear a shell bra with saggy breasts. So what would be like hers would be kelp. I feel like she would be wearing kelp. I don't know. Anyway, see, I'm going off on a tangent. It's just like, the title of this. It's just like the language is good. Verses of the Beast Within, Ritual Morning Prayer of the Prophetess. I love that word, prophetess. I love it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there is so much in this book that's good. But even if I just read the language outside of the context, I'm still getting hits from it. And that's what makes this a sacred text for me. So that's been profound this year. I'm talking a lot about that book. Okay. Let's see. The next one is... let's move this out of the way for a second. Is Hildegard. Now, I love Hildegard's music. That's what got me into Hildegard, is her lovely renditions of the chants. But reading on her life and reading about her visions specifically, like her music is great, and I could just listen to that for the rest of my life and be completely content with chants. Even though I do tend to, I love male chants, the Latin Gregorian, Greek Orthodox, or even Russian Orthodox chants. I love when it's male vocals, but there's something profound about the way that she composed feminine vocals specifically that I'm drawn to as well. And so I could listen to her music and be completely content. But after getting this book, and it has actual like black and white pictures of her visions. Now her visions are just what they are. They're visions. Let's see if I can get to where they're colored. I think that's in my other book. I have another book by Matthew Fox who did the foreword of this, and it's just a visions book, and where her drawings are colored, or like in color, like a manuscript style, and it very much does. I mean, it's in terms of medieval art, this is what you had. In terms of aesthetics and style. So it links me in because I like manuscripts. I like reading, looking at medieval manuscripts. But there's something about this getting linked with her visions that has helped me form a better relationship to my religious trauma, I'll say. Forming a relationship that's entirely my own with the severe dogmatic Christianity that I grew up in. There's been a lot of trauma involved with that throughout the years of me wanting to push back shadows and things like that. And I had to learn how to build a relationship around, I guess you could say, fundamental Christianity, I guess you could say. And the way I've been doing that is through things like this, through chants, through Christian chants, through litanies, and through lighting candles at Catholic churches, and through reading about these godly visions, reading up on, Saint Teresa of Assisi, and I think it's Julian of Norway. Is it Norway? Saint John of the Cross. All these monks and nuns who have had philosophical discussions, written them down, had visions, things like that. I'm drawn to that anyway. But I made a video all on like monk life and what that's done to me. So it's always fascinated me, but it has helped me heal. Like books like this have helped me heal. And this one has helped a lot. So Hildegard of Bingen's Book of Divine Works. Now on to what I would consider my Emperor my Emperor mindset of this year. Now, in terms of tarot, my card of the year this year was the Star card. And my word of the year was Essence, as I've already, previously mentioned. I don't know. This whole year, it seems like I've had a marriage of the Star with the Emperor, which is kind of weird because I never would have put them together. But when I think about the Thoth system, I think about how Crowley switched them in terms of the Zodiac and Sidhe and things like that, in terms of the Hebrew letter, and how, he was like, he had his own vision for that. But thinking about the Star being my card of the year, but then me being drawn to the Emperor so harshly throughout the course of the year has really gotten me thinking about how the fact that they are connected. There is a connection there. I will even go almost to the point where in this year alone, I've been grappling with this, I guess this question of the Emperor's not even married to the Empress. He's married to the Star. He's married to the Star card. I mean, how profound is that? Like, the Empress and the Emperor are two separate beings. They're not a couple. They're not nothing together, and then he's got this like really divine relationship with the Star card. And so I've been grappling with that this year and really drawn to the Emperor as an archetype. And these two books have been the best for that. Okay. Let's move all this. Okay. So I've got Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Now, I have a relationship with war. I guess you could say one of my unlived lives was a warrior / shield maiden. Okay. There's something deeply embedded in me ever since I've been a little girl. When I hear drums, I actually have visions of battlefields. Okay. I know that's going to sound really weird. And I may, if y'all are interested, I may go into that in a totally separate video. I've even made prayer beads about this. I mean, it's not as harsh as you would think. It's not as harsh as like I'm embodying Joan of Arc. Okay. I'm not that charming about it, but it has been something that has stuck with me. So war itself, literally the art of war. This is my very old, very beautiful. Oh, I love it so much. This has so much spirituality inside of it because I don't consider war separate than life. I don't consider challenges separate than, I guess I'll say that I believe in duality. I believe in the dualism of the universe. I believe that we have to have the challenging times in order to, like, how would we know if the good times were good, if the bad times weren't shitty? And war-like times, I guess you could say, teach us that. In terms of morality, in terms of how to perform, how to physically make camaraderie and companionship and like a sacred brotherhood, a sacred, I guess, village, if you will, of forces that come together that have the same objective and they go forth with that. But then there's also a level of following the masses and conformity. It's like collective, what I like to call collective illusions, which I'm going to make a video about coming up. But this has taught me a lot about, and of course, a lot of it is war. Okay, it's you have to feed your horses when you're on the battlefield. You have to take care of those. Like they're gonna die. Like what are you gonna do? Like stuff like that. Very practical. But if you were to take the old world battlefield text out of this. Not that you would want to, okay? I'm not telling you to. I'm telling you that if you could transcend the text and the language, you will find something profound in this. I guarantee it. And then Marcus Aurelius. Now, I am not a Stoic. I mean, if you're interested in Stoicism and philosophy, I would recommend Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, or Seneca. Mine happens to be Marcus Aurelius because I can bibliomancy this. We'll just turn a page here. Oh, let's get out of the introduction. I need to do like what Sorsha does and like do the page numbers so that I'm not always going to the middle of the book. I think that video of hers was so profound. Okay. If you've immersed yourself in the principles of truth, the briefest, most random reminder is enough to dispel all fear and pain. Leaves that the wind drives earthward, such are the generations of men. Now, all this is meditation 34, okay? I'm just... But if you zone in, like I was talking about with the art of war, I zone in and it's the language. The language pulls you in and you need it to. And then when you get a spark, you'll get inspired. You'll immediately want to go to the journal and write about something. I usually have some sort of hit where I want to journal about something that has nothing to do with this. It may have something to do with leaves on the wind, leaves upon the wind, and then that makes me think of like Pocahontas, and then like I just like weave a river in there. So, but I keep coming back to this. I've come back to this all year. When my dad passed away, this was a saving grace because a lot of the meditations of Marcus Aurelius remind me of my dad's own personality and the kind of person he was. And so I linked the two, and it helped me in the harshest moments of my grief. So, and then the last book has been my meta, and it is Metahuman by Deepak Chopra. He has been my spiritual guru all year. Now, I have my go-to spiritual gurus. Usually it's Carl Gustav Jung, it's Deepak Chopra, and it's Alan Watts. Okay. I could listen to all three of them. I could just put them on in the background and do my thing. And I am a happy little kitten. Okay. I'm sitting there purring the whole time. I could just listen to all of them on repeat. That just such good stuff. Okay. And I actually have this in here. Living in a creative universe as something to share with you guys. If time is a construct, the same is true for the other things that we consider essential to the universe. Our experience of matter and energy is quite species specific. Does a termite steadily gnawing its way through a house's wooden frame experience the wood as hard? Does a mole confined underground for its entire lifetime in a tunnel barely wide enough to crawl through experience space as tight? Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And that language does remind me of Alan Watts, actually. You know? Like when one of his famous things is clouds, right? Like, a cloud just is. Like, he gets so passionate about clouds. Like, so, there's that. Anyway, before I end, I didn't want Min to put that down just now, but there's so much in here that has taught me about myself, of course, because it's called Metahuman and it's called Unleashing Your Infinite Potential. But what I've mostly gotten from this is the nature of the universe, which is duality, okay? And the nature of you, which is there's a dualism there. And I can get into that. I could talk about that all day. But for me, what this taught me was that there is a meta reality. So this is this isn't me, okay, in a selfish way, wanting to be meta, okay? It's more along the lines of I want to know and have a relationship with the concept of meta reality. And this has been really profound for that. All right, and then super quick, we'll we'll go over art. Now, I don't mean art in terms of like art that I've been looking at, art that I have been using for journaling, although I will mention Leonora Carrington, and like by way of her, I had discovered Remedios Varos. So I'll leave, I don't know, something below about those two beautiful artists that I discovered this year. And there's just something about their art that is ethereal, and I have been using their art to journal a lot, but that's not what this segment is about. This segment is about my art. What I had discovered this year was my messy art. Okay? Now, I got this for, I believe it was my birthday. It is literally a hardback, like cardboard hardback sketchbook with, you know, the cheap sketch paper. And I loved it so much. I loved the marble. I'm sorry, I was just getting the dust off. or the, I don't even know. It's like dirt or, I don't know. I loved it so much, and it was $5. And it was pretty thick. But this type of hardback covering is my favorite for any book. Like, I love this. I don't necessarily like hardbacks especially for journals. Like, I'm a composition girl all the way. I like them flimsy. I like it to just be able to throw them down. But in terms of like books, and if it's going to be hardback, I like this. And it's been epic. Also, I'm going to leave a link to a video that I watched this year with this beautiful artist. He teaches a class, an art class. And he wears this like really cool Shakespearean costume every time, which I don't know, I find fascinating. I love it about this guy. But he taught this one class that's on YouTube that he talked about paper and the transient properties of paper, and how we're taught we're taught from a very young age about books and about like empty books and journals and how not to waste paper. And so therefore we've somehow put paper on a pedestal like it's some kind of piece of gold, you know, like, oh, you know, write on the backs of this. Oh, don't throw that away. That, you know, that's a waste of paper. If you just want to doodle something and throw the paper out. Like, our parents ingrained into us, oh, you know, write in the margins, write on the back of the paper. And it was so fascinating because I'm like, oh my gosh, he's literally speaking my childhood. I would like draw something, but that'd be it. You know, there's nothing else that would be the picture, but my parents would be like, it's a waste of paper, you know? And so therefore that's what ingrains into us, that paper is a gold mine. Anyway, so I learned a lot this year in terms of my art. But it's so crazy to think about sketchbooks and how when you get something like this that you really, really like, you don't want to always use it, right? To force myself to do those things. Let's move the decks out of the way for a second so I can make some kind of room here. I forced myself to use this not as a sketchbook, but as a crayon magic book. There's something about crayon. The smell of them. I have a box about yay big that's like one of those pencil boxes full of crayons that I've probably had since childhood, some of them. Just, you know, Crayola, right? And there's something about their waxy property that really gets me to unlock. Okay, so I've been using this book specifically this year to Picasso myself. Okay, so none of this is going to be good. by societal definition. But I have been loving doing what I call childhood or childlike. And I won't even go there because I don't think that it has to be something that we denote down or demote down to the child level when it's primitive art. I believe that that's still art. So anyway, just to give you an example. Okay. Just random. And I use only crayons. Only crayons. I love this. I like made a 3 of Swords necklace. And I don't know if y'all be able to see that because the glare is so crazy with the sun right now. It's a little bit better. So anyway, primitive drawings. This was so profound. This was actually a vision, and I call it bloody trees. But it's just scriggles, you know. But I keep coming back and looking at this. I don't know. So crayon magic has been profound this year. I'm not going to show you anymore because it's literally crayon scratches. And then I had bought this composition notebook. Now I keep those, like I should have stock in them, okay? I have a stack like this big of composition notebooks. And they look exactly like this, okay? But I bought this for one of my children that needed graph paper. But it turned out that they didn't like doing math and graphing in a notebook. They wanted the loose graph paper. So I had to go out and get loose graph paper. So then I found myself having never used a graph composition notebook. And by graph, I mean this type of paper. For journaling, right? It just seemed to be, my go-to was the lined paper. But much in the same way as crayon magic, I learned how to do what I will consider primitive or messy poetry in this book. And so this has like been a pen and ink, almost like a book of mirrors that's come out of my soul. So if we're, going off of this pen, poetry, doodles, like literally doodles. I was studying, like in this one, I was actually listening to was it physics? It was probably mathematics. I was listening to a mathematical video or podcast about shapes and their importance in the universe. And as I'm listening, I just like drawed this or I drew this with the snake and everything. But I literally just have been taking the pen and I could be doing something else. But there's something so freeing about the pen sliding on this paper and the graphs and like conscious awareness of using the graphs or not using the graphs and like sliding over the graphs like they don't even exist. I love this. The universe is making me dizzy. All she does is twirl. And I did a spiral with an infinity symbol at the end, and it's just primitive drawings. I have a thing for eyeballs, so there's that. Sacred vulture. The vulture has been a powerful symbol for me this year. But yeah, so the poetry that I write, I would consider just flows out in a very primitive way anyway. But to add it to this graph paper and the doodles has just been such a profound experience. So in terms of art this year, it's been primitive. It's been what I consider crayon or primitive crayon and pen and ink magic. But it's also been profound to have these outlets because I can't oil paint while pregnant. So that's been something that, you know, I'm like, I can't get my oil paints out. So, and then the last thing in terms of art is using, how great are these? They're 5 by 7 inch sketchbooks. Actually, I like mixed media, okay, because the paper is thicker than sketch paper. But I've been using this to map out my oracle deck, which is what I'll consider the Essence of Linen oracle deck. It's like the spiritual, weird, really weird oracle deck. Here it is. Yeah. This is the one I showed in the previous video, Fountain of Virtues. And I'm just mapping it out. And I'm probably going to utilize some of my crayon or color pencil or pen and ink magic style when I go to really do the card for the programs that I'm going to use. So, but it's going to be fully drawn, and then it's going to be scanned in, and that's going to be it. So no digitalization whatsoever. So this is going to be a very primitive Essence of Linen deck. So it does have a title, but I'm not going to give that away. Okay. And then to round out this look back at 2022, I want to go over my standout decks. And these are by no means all the decks that I have used this year, for sure. But they're the ones that I keep going back to. And they all have had places in my life this year that I needed, and I didn't know that I needed them. So I will, since I've already mentioned that one of my greatest, what I consider one of my greatest accomplishments of the year is my Thoth, and I've already mentioned that, and it really has been a staple. Like, I don't know. It was a deck that I needed to see. I needed to be able to see the universe and the macro and the microcosm working together in a Thoth way that could link me to, I mean, I could have, you know, when you're studying a deck or when you know a system so well, you want so much for it to transcend, keep transcending, keep becoming abstract, right? But as I've grown and learned with the Thoth, I learned that instead of going up and out and transcend, they just would have ended up being actually that mentality took me to the deck. It was Tarot is Color, which is like a Thoth-based deck full of blobs of color, which is a deck that I don't have, but with a system like Thoth, you want it to keep transcending and go and go and go and beyond, beyond, beyond until it reaches that abstract point, right? That's the message. I believe that that's what Crowley's vision was in the beginning, is that once we learn the system, utilize the system, get ingrained into it, become it, and not in some kind of weird way. I just mean that's the goal, is to become an abstract nature of the deck. But what I chose to do with this Thoth, with the Wild Essence, is bring it down instead of up. Almost like, let's keep the entire system in Malkuth, or even go to the shadow tree of life, if anything. But anyway, I wanted very much to see Earth and see what I would see every day in the Thoth system. Like I said, very much bringing it down to Earth, down to the levels that I could see it. So that I'm not always looking for the blobs of color. So that I'm not always reaching out and up. I can bring it in to the to become more grounded with the Thoth system. And this really has worked. This really has worked for me. And I'm so glad that so many people have reached out and said that they love it. I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because, like I said, when you work with a system like the Thoth, you very much want that abstract feeling when you work with it. I think that if I would ever get my hands on, this is one of my favorite cards in the deck. If I ever got my hands on tarot as color, I would work with these two together as sort of a actual macro and microcosm Thoth system, working in tandem. Now I have 6 decks, like I've already pointed out, that I have on Make Playing Cards that you can go and look up. All the links for all my decks are below. But in terms of my Thoth being a staple this year, my Wild Nature, Wild You Oracle is also a staple and has been. It's, again, I work a lot with these two together, but I do work with this as an altar tool, as dream work. A lot of my imagination work does stem in the abstract, on the astral, right? Messy poetry, like I've already mentioned. But for some reason, these words and these earthbound images plug me in. Plug me in to my wild nature. It plugs me into places I need to see when I need to ground, and I need these concepts in my life. So it really does, it just plugs me right in. I love it. It's just been such a wonderful deck for me. Again, it may not be, you know, profound for a lot of people because it's just images with words on them. But for some reason, it works. And it has the whole year. And it's been, that's been like probably out of all of these, the best deck that I've worked with. All right. And then these two were actually gifts from some godmothers, friends and godmothers. So talk about the Alchemy Tarot, or the Alchemical Tarot, by Robert M. Place. I have always wanted this deck, and I was gifted it by a lovely friend of mine, and it's just been so good. The way I study alchemy, this deck allows me to study alchemy the way that I always have. And I do study alchemy in a scientific way, in a scientific way where it's not all this internal spirituality, because alchemy wasn't that. Alchemy, I mean, the 19th century did that to alchemy, not necessarily what alchemy was. It was chemistry, you know. But I like to work with the science and the metaphysical side of alchemy together, and I believe that Robert M. Place did a fantastic job rendering that. He used, I mean, when you think about the alembic and you think about the tools and the symbols that are therein, you know, therein, he really did match them well to the tarot. You know, if you think about it, he could be an alchemical tarot, like mixing the science and the metaphysical, much like Eliphas Levi did with the tarot, you know? You plug it in and you can find things. I mean, look at that. That's so great. Oh, I love it so much. Beautiful world card. God. Anyway, the art speaks to me, and it's been a study deck this year, but also just a perfect one to have in my collection. I love it. And then Fairy Godmother gifted me this because I mentioned in a video about it being like one of my last decks that I needed in my collection, and my beautiful Fairy Godmother sent it to me, and I could not thank them enough. And in terms of transcendence, because as I keep saying, a lot of these decks, well, they pull me like from a heartstring place, a red thread place, to go above and beyond, like I'm linked with a hot air balloon and I have no choice but to fly and float up. But what all these decks in that, they have that transcend, I'm sorry, the transformation properties, the floaty, abstract property that I need because I've got that tether there. But they also link me. Like I'm part of the tether, but I keep putting the stake in the ground in terms of grounding. And this deck has allowed me to do that. It's allowed me to be in the liminal space of floating and being grounded, and that very safe liminal space. Perfect. Oh. So this deck has been so profound to connect me with the floaty aspect of the Fae, flying. I've had a lot of flying dreams with this. This card right here. This card has been prevalent for me this year. But anyway, this deck, I knew I needed it. And as soon as I got it, it fulfilled everything that I thought it would. So there you go. Tarot of the Sidhe. I'm sorry if I didn't say that before. That was Tarot of the Sidhe. Then these two. This one is like, I guess like I said in a video before, I'll leave it for you. My weirdest tarot deck ever. It is actually a tarot deck. But it's so weird. But I have been loving working with it as just an intuitive deck, within the structure of tarot. So it's called the Isolation Tarot, and it's just so good. I mean, it is so good. I love it for what it is. And I found myself trying so hard to make it make sense with a regular tarot system, an original normal tarot system. But having found out that I don't need to force it, you know, it also links me back to that floaty property but it needs grounding too. You have to be grounded. You have to be in that liminal space between floating and grounded and tethered. And I find so many elemental properties within this deck that so good, so good. This is the Judgment card in this deck. It's just beautifully drawn. It's just, you know, it just is what it is, and I love it. I've come to love it for what it is, even though I made a whole video ranting about how it's my weirdest deck. But it's become a staple. It's become a staple since I've gotten it. It's almost like because of its obscure nature, I'm drawn to it more. And then one of the last decks is Psychic Tarot. This is beat the hell up, but so good. But when I first got it, I drew these little glyphs here of cups, and the black of course is the major arcana, circles for pentacles, and swords and wands, like just a line with a cross through it if it's a sword. Not that this is technically a tarot deck. I mean, it's rendered as a tarot deck, but I use it very much. I guess I would say I use it as a tarot deck, but I've mostly used it for an oracle and an intuitive way. But it does give really profound messages, and the art is not my thing. I don't like the art, but for some reason it works with what it is. I love that card. Just works very, very well for what it's supposed to do. And it's been a really good deck this year. So that's the Psychic Tarot by John Holland. I do have Psychic Tarot for the heart, but this and that deck seem to be kind of like how I feel about soul cards. I love soul cards. They're like, that's probably my soul deck. But I tend to gravitate more towards soul cards. One, I love soul cards too so much, but I just pick up soul cards one more and work with it more. And the same thing goes with this. I love Psychic Tarot for the heart, which is a separate deck than this by the same creator, but I tend to work with this one more. It just is what it is. And then the last deck is one that I have, actually, this is kind of new to me. This is like in the later part of the year, I buckled down and got the mass market of the Wild Unknown, because my mini version, which is my knockoff version that I bought years and years and years ago, had become a staple this year for me. So I buckled down and got this. And really, really good. I actually just put it back in order. I love to do that with my decks. When I'm learning with them and playing with them, I always tend to like get them out and like shuffle them and play with them and do cool tarot play dates with them, but in pairings, deck pairings and stuff. But then I'll always like put them back in order. Just as like a fun little, I don't know, exercise for me. I do love the quartz in the Wild Unknown. I made a video all about that this year too. So, anyway, another staple. Not this deck specifically, but the mini one that I have over there that's a fake one has become a staple. So, here's to many more moons with the Wild Unknown. All right. And those have been those are some of my staple decks. And I think we've reached the end of the thingies.
Okay, editing linen here. Another staple that came out this year that has been so profound is the Tree Whisper Oracle Secret Garden Edition by Mags Black. I will leave her channeling below. It is such a deck, you guys. I can't even express how much this deck means to me and how much I've used it. It's just so beautiful. But anyways, I can't believe I even left it out. And it's probably because it was like up on a shelf, and when I was collecting decks, it was in a different spot because of the amount of time that I have devoted to it. So this is the real last deck that has been a staple, I guess, a standout deck of 2022.